let's go to this practical framework that David mentioned as well. So we have this way of thinking, and this is another dimension, I say another framework of thinking about AI, but this is more about thinking about AI in how you can operationalize in the vision. How can you map AI use cases onto how your business actually works, right? So you may have customer journeys where your customers sign off, they have a recurrent, since we're talking mostly about subscriptions, they have a recurrent cadence in which they're there. There could be like, let's say they have a 12-month subscription, so they sign up, you have the funnel bringing them in, they sign up, they stay with you for 12 months, then they renew. Anyway, there's this flow in your business, right? And how do you map AI use cases onto that to optimize the whole thing? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on the next slide, but I'm going to start, or 2 slides from now. But I'm going to start here just to explain this framework that we use to think about that. So we talk about analyze, predict, optimize, measure. Analyze, as this drawing shows, I drew with my own hands, shows you is about analyzing the past, right? Look at what has happened. So churn changed last month. Why? Now you want to understand the past. You want to understand what's happening. Do analysis there, right? So you're analyzing the past to try and get some ideas about what's going on in your business and why. You can then predict into the future. So let's say we're looking at a churn rate here. So we've analyzed the historic churn rate up to today. We can then predicting it using also machine learning. We're analyzing it using AI. In the past, we are now using AI to predict it into the future and look at what's going to happen if the world stays what it is today and nothing else changes, right? We can then optimize that. That means we make hypothetical changes to the world today. We change our pricing, change something else in the model, and we then look at how the different scenarios would play out, right? We're making different predictions based on changes we are making to the world today. Hypothetically, right? It's all modeling at this point. We then make a change based on that optimization. We say, okay, actually, it looks like if we were to give a 5% discount, that would help us with this churn problem. We make that change and we measure the impact of that change. So that's the measure, right? So we made the change, now we're measuring. So we're using, again, AI to analyze what is the effect of that change. Typically, the best way to always do that is A/B testing, but you might not be able to do that. There's other ways you can do it. But typically, you do an A/B test. So you say, okay, half of the customers coming into my website, or some percent of my customers coming into my website is going to see this reduced plan, or half of the existing customers are going to get this new discount offered to them. So you give a cohort of customers this, you apply the thing to a cohort of customers. The other cohort of customers stay the same. They're the control group. You run this experiment for a bit of time and you see what's happened. And then you make a decision whether to stay with the new thing and move everyone to it, or that was not a good idea. It didn't quite play out the way we predicted. And then you repeat this loop, right? Now you analyze the past again, you predict what's going to happen, you optimize, and so on and so on and so on. I think it's a nice way of mapping sort of the different cases of AI onto what you're doing in your business. Little example. So let's imagine here's a customer story I wrote up. So the analyze part is like we see MRR dipping last month, right? It dips in a certain region. We think that's weird. Now our analysis shows that this seemed to be due to customers having been with us for more than 6 months on a particular plan, have increased. Churn has increased there. And the model is telling us that it is most likely the typical driver of that, or it seems like the driver of that, is something to do with price sensitivity, right? So that's the analysis we've done in the past. That gives us the idea that perhaps pricing is what we should be tweaking to reduce this churn problem. But now let's look and see if this is just a transient thing, or it's going to go into the future. So we run our prediction. Our prediction shows us that the forecast that the churn problem will continue. In fact, maybe it will increase over time. It looks like there's a whole cohort moving through the system that is increasing in churn slowly over time, and they'll continue. So that would mean that our MI is going to continue going down, and we have this cohort of customers where the LTV will drop significantly. Now we run our optimization on that. So we try different scenarios. We think it's something to do with pricing, so let's do a few scenarios, and we realize that we see that if we were to give this group of customers, this particular group of customers, a loyalty discount, so let's say everyone who's on the mid-tier plan for more than 6 months, we're going to give them 10% discount. Now, if we did that, then the simulation shows us that the forecast that the churn would drop by about 15%, and that would actually mean our MRR would be going up. So we're giving them a small discount. Because churn drops even more, we're going to get an MRR increase, and we'll help our churn problem. Now we put that into effect. So actually we run this experiment on a group of customers, and we see that there is an effect, and the effect is the positive one we want. The model matched reality. It doesn't always, but it did in this case, right? And then we stick with that, we implement that as our new policy, and then we move on, right? So this is sort of the typical way you would go about it. Find a problem, then you do the analyze, you do the prediction, you do the optimize, you do the measure, and then you repeat across your business, right? Now, that is just sort of one little use case I talked about. What I think everyone should really be aiming towards is having this as a whole like loop across there, mapping this into their customer journey and looking at how you can optimize every part of the customer journey in this way. So this maps back to things I've done many times in the past, and I think is a very powerful tool. Like if you think about having 12 months contracts, it could be anything. For example, 12 months contract is nice because it's a long time, and it really emphasizes my point. It's really difficult to know with, for example, 12-month contract, and if you're trying to optimize retention, for example, what things you can do today that would change retention after 12 months. Because if you do something today, you have to wait 12 months to see the effect, right? That's a very long time. Let's think about the customer success team doing onboarding in a B2B business, or the product team doing features in your B2C business, right? They may have a hypothesis of what will change, what will help retention, but they won't know. They'll implement the onboarding changes to customers today, and then they'll wait 12 months and they'll see what the effect is. Because in most cases, when a customer really, what it all comes down to, the early days of any long-term contract is the most important. You can tell in many cases, when you do the analysis, you'll find that, the first few months of a contract is really where the key drivers of churn or not churn is, right? It's all about early engagement. It is like on all platforms. So, but the way you can do this is you can run this loop I talked about before, backwards basically, to build up milestones along customer journey that's backed by predictive analytics, and it tells you that at every point in time what the customer should be hitting. So I'm going to illustrate this a bit more. Let's say your goal is to optimize retention in 12 months. Now look at what you know about a customer in 6 months, and do your analyze, predict, optimize, measure loop to try and optimize retention at 12 months, knowing only what you know about the customer 6 months, right? What you want to understand is you want to essentially find the key things, the key behaviors, the leading indicators at 6 months that leads to renewal at 12 months. Now you roll that back to 3 months. Find the leading indicators at 3 months that drives those leading indicators at 6 months, which you know are leading indicators of retention. And then so on and so on, you go back. What you end up with is a set of KPIs at 1 month or 2 weeks, or however far you want to roll back. That is sort of, and those are often quite early stage onboarding behaviors, right? So a customer needs to do this, and this action within 30 days. Now, you know that if they do this and this action within 30 days, they're much more likely to do this and this action after 3 months, and they're much more likely to have these features after 6 months, and that leads to retention going up. So then that gives you really clear KPIs for customer support, product, even sales, for what they should be looking at early in a customer journey, right? And now you can then run your analyze, predict, optimize, measure loop at each one of these points, right? So you want to analyze, you want to optimize each one of these. You want to optimize for those leading indicators in 1 month. That's your product team maybe doing that. Then you want to optimize the ones at 3 months, and so on, so on, so on. I hope that made sense. I made a little bit of a roundabout argument there, but if you can build that customer journey, you have a really, I'd say, proper data-driven business, right? You know exactly at every point in time what it is, and there's KPIs across every part of the customer journey, and that means it's easy to optimize. It's easy to know what customer support, product marketing should be doing.